All right, guys, I'm back. I took a few videos, gave you guys a glance at these bikes. The most interested one that you guys are looking at out there is the suspension one. So I kind of gave you kind of a very quick rundown on suspension. I'm going to try and simplify it for you just a little bit. This shouldn't be long. You can find a bunch of videos out there that guys are taking these all apart. I just want it to be known that you do not have to take the forks off. This is a very simple job. And I'll just kind of go through quicker and easier and a little bit more in detail without taking the bike apart. You can watch a lot of videos to take the bike apart, but it really doesn't need to. So I'm going to just start with what's inside a fork. So basically, at the top of the fork, you got a cap, then you got a spacer, then you got a coil spring, then you got a damper rod, you got a plug at the end, and then underneath that is your bolt that goes in the bottom of the lower part of the fork. That's what you need to get out to get this all done. So I'm just going to give you a quick rundown as to how I did it. I'm not going to give any torque specs. I'm not going to give fluid levels. I'm not going to give any of that. I'm just going to show you that you do not need to take the forks off the bike. So I'm going to put this down. You're going to have to look at me a little bit. Sorry about that. I apologize. So first things first, you got to jack the bike up. So it's going to have to come up from the belly. I have a center stand, then a jack underneath the belly. The belly protector aluminum doesn't really seem like it'll lift the bike. You can try that. You can try not. However, you got to get it off the ground. You get it off the ground. Next, you got to take the front wheel off. So front wheel's got to come off. Caliper does not need to come off. Once you get the front wheel off, I would put something inside that caliper that isn't going to scratch the pads or damage the pads at all, but it'll just keep them from coming together. Once that's apart, don't ever grab the front brake because it's going to collapse it and you're going to have a hell of a time getting them apart. So once the front wheel's off, to make your life a little bit more simple, you can take the front fender off. That'll allow you to pump the forks when you get the fluid in and out. All right, so once the wheel is off and the fender is off, you're going to put a tub underneath each fork. You need, if you can see that, otherwise I'll get a picture when we're done, an 8mm long Allen. I don't necessarily recommend it having the ball style on the end like I got. It worked, I had it, so I used it. If I had to go buy one, I would buy a normal hex, not a ball. So down below the fork, you're going to go up into the fork, take that nut out. You will need an impact wrench, something that goes fast and strong, and I'll give you a couple of tips. Once you hit it with the impact, if it continues to spin, you're going to need to go in and put a little bit more tension on the top of your fork. So what you can do is you can take the fork cap off. Before you take the fork cap off, always just try and undo this first nut on the top up here, just a little bit in case it's clamping down on the top cap. Take the top cap off, put a couple spacers in, then put the cap back on and try and get your bottom bolt out. Once it comes out, it's going to spill all the fluid. Just leave the tub underneath it, come back up, take the cap off, okay? Once you get the cap off, right underneath the cap, you're going to have your spacer tube. Right underneath that, you're going to have a spring. Those both come out very easy, okay? They come right out of the top. Bear with me a quick second. At which point, you're going to need, because you have the bottom bolt out already, and you want to get the damper rod out of the bottom. So what I use is I made a tool that I kind of showed you the last time. This might be a little better image. So at the bottom of that tube is going to be your damper rod. You're just going to go straight down the fork, hook it in there, and pull it right out. At which point you're going to spill whatever was left in the damper rod. Okay? This just comes out. As long as you don't jam this thing in there, you're going to have an easy time with it. You can see it goes right in, it'll pull it out, and it comes right back out. Don't overdo it. Don't get stuck down the bottom. So, with that said, at that point, you can pull your damper rod and go and drill out your holes, like I showed you in the picture. If not, I'll show you right at the end. So put that back over here. Once you drill the holes out, put your damper rod back in. Go up underneath, finger tight, the bolt underneath it. You're not going to tighten it at this point. You just want it finger tight so it doesn't go anywhere. Once you drop that down there, more than likely it's not going to go all the way down in the hole. So what you do is you take your little one, just a straight edge, go up in the bottom of it, and you're going to kind of wiggle it around and you'll feel it drop down in there. Super easy. Like I said before, once you do it, you'll know what I'm talking about. All right, so once you're bolted, you're going to put your spring back in. Okay? Well, first you got to put your if you're doing the YSS or else like a gold valve from Race Tech, you're going to put that in next. You can look online to find out how to set those up. Then your spring goes on top of the valve. Then your collar goes on, or your spacer. And then you're going to put your YSS cap on the top. Okay? When you thread it in, it needs to be all the way up, but then back it off a little bit. What I was trying to explain the last time is if it's super tight, like you crank it all the way down, this won't turn, so that when you press it on the spring or the top, it's going to be really hard to turn. So just pull it out just a little bit so that that bottom plate turns. Then you're going to put that on. Once that's on, the spring has tension on the damper rod. You can go in and impact that, that bottom bolt in. At that point, you're pretty well done with that part. Now all you got to do is add fluid. So you're going to pull this back out. You're going to pull the spring out because you got to go down. Well, you got to get fluid in there. Once you pour the fluid in, you're going to push the forks up and down. You can hear it with the air. You can hear the air escaping. That's what you're after. Once that's done, you're done. Put it back together. You got to level it. And then put your cast back on. That side's done. Do the same thing to the other side. I don't know that this explains it 100%, but this is not a difficult job. Remember to tighten this back up. Just go through and tighten. I like to tighten everything 2 to 3 times with a torque wrench. Torque everything down. Go for a test drive. Then you're going to want to set and sag. And by the way, these come with 90 kilogram springs, which is in the neighborhood for most guys. If you're 200 plus, you might step up to somebody else's spring, but I would try the 90. It comes with a kit anyway, and you'll probably be fine. Setting up sag, you're going to do that with the preload adjuster on here. So if you're a heavier guy, you're going to have more preload on the front. Another good tip is to put a tie strap, plastic tie, around, dear God, one of the fork legs. I must have it on the other side. And then when you ride it, you can look as to see how much of your suspension you're using. You want to use all of your suspension, but controlled. So if it bottoms out, you put a little bit more pressure on it. You can also go in and adjust the gold valves or the YSS valves for compression and dampening. So you can harden that up a little bit too if it's too fast to come up or too soft. That's really it. Without taking the bike apart and being really, really detailed, that's about all I can tell you. This is not a hard job, and the forks do not have to come off the bike. If you have 30,000 miles on the bike, it might not be a bad idea just to pull them. That way you can clean out the bottom. My bike had 700 on the GT and 1,000 on the Interceptor. It wasn't clean fluid coming out, but it was fine. So there's not a lot of garbage down there. So that's about it. That's really all I got. Any questions at all, if you guys can leave them right on the comments, I will try and answer to the best of my ability. Otherwise, again, this makes a dramatic difference in the bike. You will talk to a lot of people that'll tell you that the suspension on a stock bike is fabulous. Until you ride one side by side, you'll never know. It makes a huge difference. No different than if you take a regular sport bike and you ride one next to a Olin suspension bike. It's going to be a huge difference because they spend a lot more money. You don't need to go to a whole cartridge where it costs you $1,500. This is a really good kit to get you 75 or better of the way to a really good front end. Once you're done with that, check out the tires, put a good set of tires on it, and you'll be in pretty good shape for life. Again, any questions, give me a comment, and I'm trying to answer whatever comments I get. You guys aren't leaving me a lot of comments, but go ahead and comment if you can. If you can, like them. I'll put out some more. Once it's nice out, I will pull them outside, and then I'll do some ride videos too for you. So you can see them in different areas other than my garage. We'll talk to you later. Thanks. Bye.